Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you all so much for being with me. I apologize for it being a couple weeks since I've released a video. Things have been kind of crazy and busy around here, but now things are starting to settle down and I can get back to a schedule of at least hopefully one video per week. So thank you, and hopefully you all been patient. Today, super excited to share with you, and what a great video to come back off a little lull with Buckingham Nicks, an incredible album from 1973 that's really not been released until just this week. What a great album it always was. To be honest with you, I really didn't know about this album until I started getting into Fleetwood Mac with their first album with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood Mac self-titled album, which I believe came out in 74, 75. We just did a Rhino High Fidelity video on that about a month ago, and I'll put the link to that in the video or in the description below. But let's go ahead and talk about Buckingham Nicks from 1973. Two very young, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, very young musicians at that age. We'll go ahead and start talking about that. Before we jump in, as always, if you like what you see, please go ahead and subscribe. But as always, please leave comments in the comment section below. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know if you've opted for the Rhino High Fidelity version, or if you opted for the Chris Bellman, or if you have a 1973 Polydor original release, or I believe they redid or re-released it in 1978, I think. And then since then, it really hasn't been released at all. Even on CD, it hadn't been released for 5 decades. It's crazy. But let's go ahead and jump in and start talking about Buckingham Nicks. What an incredible album from 1973. Buckingham Nicks from 1973. Wow. What took them so long to re-release this album? When it was first released in 1973, wasn't a big, huge success at all for Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. Both very young at that when they released this album, very young. But if you recall, and we talked a little bit about this, and I'll put the link to the video below, in the Fleetwood Mac titled album, we talked about how Keith Olsen was kind of showing Mick Fleetwood around Sound City Studios and talking about the quality of the sound that they were producing at that time. And one of the demos that he let them hear was Buckingham Nicks. And once he heard that, he, of course, offered a job to Lindsey Buckingham, but Lindsey Buckingham wasn't going to come unless Stevie Nicks could come with him. And, you know, what a great decision that was, because that was really, truly where Fleetwood Mac totally took off. Lindsey Buckingham, great musician, great songwriter. Stevie Nicks, an incredible songwriter and musician as well. And boy, that really just took off. But this album here didn't really get a whole lot of love when it was initially released in 1973. And the only other time that I think they did a repress of it, I think it was 1978 that they did a repress on Polydor records. And that was it, and just till recently, not even on CD. There were some bootleg series CDs that were released at different times or came out at different times, but none of them were for the original tapes. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and talk about Rhino's High Fidelity, see what Kevin Gray has done with those master tapes, all analog. Talk about the sound quality. We'll compare it to a 1973 Buckingham Nicks release. And you know, when Mick Fleetwood was touring with Keith Olsen with Sound City Studios, and showing him how good a quality they did, it was a great quality. This album, like Fleetwood Mac, titled Fleetwood Mac, is no different. Sound quality is absolutely phenomenal. My original 1973 is in pretty darn good condition, and it sounds fantastic. Can the Rhino High Fidelity beat it? Well, that's what we're going to really talk about today, and see. We'll talk about the sound quality and see if Rhino High Fidelity has done a good job. Because really and truthfully, when this was released in 1973, by the way, Robert Ludwig did the mastering at the time for this album in 1973. Maybe that's probably one of the reasons why it sounds so darn good. But anyway, we'll compare the 1973 original pressing to see if it's as good as Rhino High Fidelity or Rhino High Fidelity and Kevin Gray. Did they do a good job? And we'll get to that here in just a second. One of the things that we want to talk about, as always, and we're going to be talking about, this is the singles version that I purchased from Rhino. So we'll talk a little bit about the singles version of this album here in just a second. But I always like to go through and kind of show you what's in the box before we get too crazy down on the sound. As we all know from Rhino High Fidelity and their past releases, it's pressed on 180-gram vinyl, cut from the original analog master tapes by Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio. Pressed at Optimal Media, heavyweight gatefold jacket, includes exclusive insert with liner notes from David Frick. Limited numbered edition to 5,000. Now, about that 5,000. They did release it in unnumbered, and right now all the unnumbered ones are sold. But from what I'm gathering and from what information I've received from Rhino, they are going to be pressing more of the unnumbered version of this album. And I'll let you know if that's really a big deal or not. Like I say, I didn't get the Chris Bellman colored vinyl pressing. I just wasn't really interested. I don't want to have a ton of them. I went for what I would think would be the best sounding version, and we'll see if that's what we got. So anyway, we got that little side thing. Here's the album cover. I think Rhino and their High Fidelity series is doing a fantastic job with their gatefolds. There's only one thing that I could nitpick about this, and I've mentioned this on a few other reviews of Rhino High Fidelity albums. Here's the inside of the gatefold, very similar to the original gatefold. Here's the back side, which is really kind of cool. I'll pull out the album, but the only thing that I could really, and I just kind of showed it to you right there, that I really struggle with a little bit, the pockets on their gatefolds are really, really tight. I don't really normally put the vinyl back into the pockets of my albums. I generally put it in a plastic protective cover and then put the album behind the gatefold cover. Anyway, here is a picture of the 180-gram vinyl pressed at Optimal, and really quite quiet. They do a very nice job, I believe, at least from my experience. Let me just quickly pull out the liner notes. And I've always thought this is a kind of a neat thing that they do. Here's a copy, a picture, if you will, of the original master tapes that they use to cut these albums from. And then here's the liner notes that we're talking about. And then there's some pictures there, as you can see. I think it's a nice touch what Rhino High Fidelity does. I think it's really cool. Really quickly, since we're looking at the album cover, let me just quickly show you the singles version of the album. Here is the inside, of course the back side. Once again, these covers are great, but even on these smaller 7-inch vinyl, the pockets are really kind of tight too. So the singles that you get is Crying in the Night, Don't Let Me Go Down Again, Races Are Run, and that's what you get. Don't Let Me Down Again is the name of that song. That's what you get on the singles version. It's a double album inside the jacket here, which is really kind of cool. Or at least I think it is. And we'll talk about the sound quality of that as we get going. So about the sound quality now, I just want you to know, and if you're fortunate to have an original 1973, or I would even imagine a 1978 repress from Polydor, would probably sound really good as well. But I know that I would classify mine as in probably very good condition, not very good plus. I mean, there's a little snap, crackle, and pop here because it did get played a lot, because I think it's a great album, even though it didn't really receive a lot of critical acclaim. But it sounds great. I mean, it sounds utterly fantastic. One of those albums that you can put on guitar is absolutely wonderful. Bottom end on this album has always been excellent. It sounds great. Well, what has Rhino High Fidelity and Kevin Gray done to this great album from 1973? Have they been able to improve upon it? Let's go ahead and talk about the sound quality of the Rhino High Fidelity Buckingham Nicks album. Sound quality of the Buckingham Nicks Rhino High Fidelity. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to take just a few of the songs. I'm not going to talk about every one of them, and we'll talk about it and we'll compare it to the 1973 Polydor, Robert Ludwig mastered version of the album, and just kind of let you know what my impressions are. Like I say, I've always loved the sound of this album. It's going to take quite an effort, in my opinion, to beat it. And Rhino High Fidelity, I'm just going to cut to the chase, but we're going to talk about all the details and whatnot in a few of the songs. Rhino High Fidelity did a great job. They did a spectacular job remastering this album. I'm here to tell you what, Kevin Gray, hats off to you, my friend. You did a great job. Let's go through and talk about just a few of the songs. Side 1, track 1, Crying in the Night. Stevie's vocals are absolutely superb, along with all instrument. The bass in the bottom end, weight-wise, equals that of the 1973 Polydor release. However, the Rhino High Fidelity has really much better detail, top to bottom. And that probably coincides a lot with, hey, you know what? This is what was done in 1973. This is just barely done at optimal. It's a pretty quiet pressing. It sounds great. Noise floor significantly lower than it is over here, which is probably one of the big reasons why. But it really does. Top to bottom, resolution and detail is noticeably different on the Rhino High Fidelity. All right, okay, let's move on to Stephanie. Fantastic. This is a song that was written by Lindsey Buckingham. Stephanie Nicks, Stevie Nicks, she goes for short, was her name. And this is a song he wrote for her. Just a fantastic acoustic guitar by Lindsey. Short, but it sounds absolutely stunning. Compare that to here, you get gobs more detail. Maybe I shouldn't use the word gobs, but you get much better detail, noticeably better detail on the Rhino High Fidelity. It's just of course, the noise floor is quieter, but that guitar detail from Lindsey's guitar is fantastic on Stephanie. All right, let's go on to Crystal on side 1, track 4. This is one of the probably more popular tracks on the album, even though it really wasn't all that popular initially when it was released. It's an excellent track, great detail on the guitar. Drums are literally spectacular in this on this track, on both versions. Drums are absolutely spectacular. Has great definition and weight. Lindsey's vocals, along with Stevie's harmonies, are absolutely excellent. The 73 is excellent as well, but it just isn't quite as punchy. And absolutely, the first thing that you'll notice is detail. Detail on the Rhino High Fidelity. It just is better top to bottom on the detail. I think bottom end wise, as far as weight, they're about 6s, to be honest with you, but you get much better detail and it's more clean on the Rhino High Fidelity. Okay, let's go ahead and move over to side 2. Don't Let Me Down Again. This is the first track on side 2. Excellent guitar. Drums and vocals from Nicks and Buckingham are absolutely stunning, in my opinion. Top to bottom extension is absolutely wonderful. It's fantastic. Excellent recording that is represented wonderfully on the Rhino. Now, the Rhino has much more detail, a lot cleaner pressing. Certainly this one, it still sounds fantastic on this one. But the Rhino does get the nod because it is so clean, such better detail on that. The 73 Polydor, while very, very good, it just doesn't have the cleanliness and it just doesn't have the detail that the Rhino High Fidelity does. On side 2, track number 3, Races Are Run. Stevie's vocals are absolutely beautiful. Very well defined. Guitars, percussion, and drums are absolutely excellent. Harmonies with Stevie and Lindsey are just absolutely wonderful. It's very well clear. And you can really get that detail on the Rhino when compared to the 1973. The 1973 pressing is no slouch. I don't want you to think we're talking leaps and bounds difference. We're not. But it is obvious when you do a direct comparison, the Rhino certainly does have better detail. Bottom end on both, I think, are about 6s, but the Rhino gives you a whole lot better detail and definition in that bottom end, not to mention the top end. Track 5 on side 2, Frozen Love. This is absolutely a wonderful track, longest track on the album, about 7 minutes long. Um, Vocals are absolutely excellent. Musicianship is incredibly, and the sonics on this album, in particular the Rhino, are just wonderful. It's an album that absolutely, top to bottom, front to back, sounds incredibly awesome. I think Kevin Gray, Rhino, really did a great job with, you know, remastering and putting this album out that's not been released for 50 years. What a great job that they have done. This is absolutely wonderful. In wrapping up and summing up, and really, of course, if I was to rank them, honestly and truthfully, the Rhino High Fidelity does beat the 73, not by gobs, not by huge margins, but certainly enough that's noticeable. If you're fortunate enough, and I'll just put it this way, if you're fortunate enough to have a clean, in great shape copy of the 1973 Polydor release, and maybe even the 78. I don't know what that repress sounds like. I just don't know. But if you've got one of the 73s, hey, you know what? And it's not one of your favorite albums, or it's one that you absolutely love, you might be just as well fine staying with your original pressing. Mine's a very good rated album as far as its condition. So it's got a snap, crackle, and pop here. To me, the Rhino High Fidelity does have better sound, but it's slapped by huge, huge margins at all. It really isn't. But you do get an incredibly, incredibly awesome, clean, top to bottom, balanced and detailed album with the Rhino High Fidelity. If I was, in conclusion, the Rhino High Fidelity, in my opinion, is first rate. I think Kevin Gray and Rhino High Fidelity did a fantastic job in remastering this. Like I say, right now, the unnumbered versions of this album apparently have all been sold out, but from what I'm gathering, they are repressing that. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But they are repressing and going to be pressing more of the unnumbered versions. If you don't have a copy of this and you get on and vet it out, because you can now get it on Qobuz, high resolution, and listen to it, I'm here to tell you what, it would be worth the wait and it would be worth your investment to buy the Rhino High Fidelity unnumbered version. It for $40, it sounds absolutely fantastic. I haven't checked because it is available from places like Acoustic Sounds, Music Direct, Elusive Disc. Mike down at the In Groove has had it on his website as well. I haven't checked there. They may have copies of it still. I just don't know. But on the Rhino website, it just says that they're out. They don't have any. They've got like a pre-order thing next to it, so you can still buy it. That's kind of how I'm indicating that it's going to be in print more. They're going to print more. So I don't think this is something that's gone away and it's gone and you've missed your chance. I believe that there's going to be more press so that, that more people can enjoy this incredibly awesome album. Okay, really quickly, Buckingham Nicks, Rhino High Fidelity, fantastic. If you got one of these, 73, you know what? It's in perfect condition, excellent condition. It's up to you. You just have to make a decision. This is a better pressing. It sounds better. There's better detail, but it's not by huge margins. If I was to put on an album, I don't know if you'd really be able to tell the difference unless you knew I was doing an A/B. Now, if you're sitting down and listening to your stereo intently and someone was changing it, you would definitely hear a difference and you would be able to identify what I'm talking about with definition and clarity. On the Rhino High Fidelity, it does sound better. Not to mention the fact you're getting a brand new album, right? If you got one of these, it's in great shape, good for you, but trying to obtain one, and they do go for quite a bit of money, it would be pretty hard to do. Quickly, let's go ahead and just talk about the Buckingham Nicks. These are 7-inch albums. They are different mixes, the singles mixes. And I've been listening to them, and they are different mixes. Like I say, they sound great. They really sound great. In fact, on some of these, the vocals are actually really, really, really good. It does sound good. This was limited to 2,000, I believe, and of course, it sold out the very day that it was announced and released. And so, if you didn't get one of those, that's not going to be reprinted, and it probably won't be offered again. But is it nice? Does it sound great? It sounds absolutely fantastic. Kevin Gray did do the remastering for the singles versions as well. And they are, of course, Rhino High Fidelity, and they sound absolutely excellent. Rhino High Fidelity, Buckingham Nicks. I think they did a great job on this pressing. Absolutely worth your investment to get one of the unnumbereds if you didn't get one. They still will be available at some point in time here in the future. Great album, great music. Really and truly, it could be really a demonstration disc. It's that good. It really does sound good. So does the 1973 pressing, just a little bit better here on the Rhino High Fidelity. Thank you all so much for watching today. Please leave comments in the comment section below. Love to hear from you. Thank you and have a great day.